When you think about the traditional pop music comeback, it usually follows a highly sanitized, almost architectural blueprint.
Right. It's very calculated.
Exactly.
Mm.
I mean, an artist goes away for a while, their PR team meticulously orchestrates a return,
Mm.
Maybe there's a carefully placed magazine interview, a nostalgic reunion tour, and just this very controlled narrative arc that makes everyone feel warm and comfortable.
Yeah, it's the standard machinery of celebrity rehabilitation. It's
Yeah.
clean, it makes demographic sense, and above all, it's safe. We really like our pop culture narratives to fit into easily digestible categories.
We do. But then you look at what is happening right now in the world of the Eurovision Song Contest, and that safe architectural blueprint hasn't just been thrown out the window.
Oh, it's been set on fire.
Totally set on fire. So just to ground everyone, it is Friday, May 8th, 2026.
Right.
We are exactly 4 days away from the first semifinal of the 2026 Eurovision Song Contest, which is kicking off in Vienna this coming Tuesday.
It's right around the corner.
It really is. And for today's deep dive, I want to welcome you, the listener, as we unpack what has to be one of the most bizarre, chaotic, and, well, fascinating collaborations in recent music history.
Bizarre might actually be an understatement here, honestly.
Seriously, we have a stack of sources today, Wikipedia pages, live betting odds, official song lyrics, and some incredibly fiery internet commentary.
It's a lot to get through.
It is, because our mission today is to look at the microstate of San Marino, a country with a population smaller than an average American college town.
Yeah.
And they're teaming up with an Italian-Eritrean Eurovision veteran named Senhit.
Right, who is a powerhouse on her own.
Exactly. But to push their bid over the edge, they have enlisted 1980s British pop icon Boy George.
Which is just wild to think about.
It's totally wild. We're going to explore how their 2026 track, a song titled Superstar, is serving as this bizarre heavy mirror for Boy George's meteoric rise, his devastating criminal falls, and his current standing as a lightning rod for intense political and social controversy.
Yeah, it's a culture clash of epic proportions. I mean,
Yeah.
you have a man who literally defined global fame in the 1980s.
Right.
Someone who essentially forced mainstream culture to redefine gender and fashion. And now he's fighting to get a tiny enclave into a European singing competition.
It sounds like a fever dream.
It really does. But what makes this worthy of a deep dive isn't just the quirkiness of the pairing, It's a profound case study in celebrity survival, the mechanics of modern fame, and whether an artist can ever truly outrun their darkest chapters.
So to understand the sheer scale of this, I want to start by looking at San Marino's overarching strategy. Because on paper, San Marino competing in Eurovision is like, I don't know, a local high school football team trying to compete in the NFL.
That's a pretty accurate analogy, actually.
Right. It's a tiny republic, completely landlocked by Italy. They made their Eurovision debut back in 2008.
Yeah.
And out of 15 appearances, they've only made the grand final 4 times.
It's a tough track record.
It is. And they have suffered the ultimate Eurovision humiliation, which is finishing in last place with 0 points 3 separate times.
Yeah, and we should probably pause to explain what getting 0 points, or null points as they call it, actually means in the context of this competition.
Yeah, please do, because it's brutal.
It really is, because Eurovision isn't just a panel of judges giving you a score in a vacuum. It's a massive continent-wide public vote combined with national juries.
Right.
So when you get 0 points, it means that literally no one across dozens of countries kicked up their phone to vote for you.
Ouch.
And no professional jury thought your song was even passable. So it is a highly public, mathematically quantifiable rejection on a global stage.
That is just rough.
It is. And for a microstate like San Marino, which lacks a massive native music industry or, a built-in diaspora of citizens living abroad to vote for them, they are at an immense structural disadvantage.
Yeah, they don't have the endless broadcasting budget of a Sweden or an Italy.
Exactly. They have to manufacture their own gravity.
And for the past few years, the center of that manufactured gravity have been Senhit.
Yes, Senhit Sadi.
Right. She is 46 years old, born in Bologna, Italy, to Eritrean parents. And she isn't just a random pop singer they found. She has a massive theatrical background.
A really impressive one, too.
Yeah. She spent years performing in major stage musicals across Switzerland and Germany. Shows like Fame, The Lion King, Hair.
She is a seasoned, highly disciplined performer.
Exactly. And that theatrical discipline is crucial, right? Because San Marino relies on her to carry incredibly complex, high-stakes staging.
They absolutely do. She represented them back in 2011 with a song called Stand By, which unfortunately didn't qualify.
Right.
She was supposed to represent them in 2020, but we all know the pandemic canceled the contest that year.
Yeah.
But 2021 is where we saw the San Marino playbook completely mutate.
Oh, man, 2021 was wild. That was the year of Adrenalina.
It was.
She brought an incredible song, but she also brought the American rapper MeLoRidAI to perform with her on stage in Rotterdam.
Which, at the time, felt like a hallucination.
It totally did.
Yeah.
How did a microstate pull an A-list American rapper into Eurovision?
Well, it comes down to understanding the economy of attention. San Marino's broadcaster realized they just couldn't win on homegrown musical merits alone against these international pop juggernauts.
Right, the math was against them.
Exactly. So they effectively weaponized stunt casting. By bringing in MeLoRidAI, they bought themselves out of that plucky underdog narrative and forced the European press corps to write about them.
It was a massive flex.
It was.
Yeah.
And it worked. They made the grand final and finished 22nd, which is a huge victory for them.
So they essentially treat their Eurovision bid like a wild-card sports franchise. They know they can't develop a deep farm system of rookie talent, so they use whatever budget they have to draft a retired legend just to force the league to put them on primetime television.
And that is exactly what they do.
And that brings us to 2026. Senhit won the San Marino National Final in March with a song called Superstar. And this time, the legend she's drafted is Boy George.
Yeah, who co-wrote the track and performs it with her.
And when you look at the construction of this song from the lyrics we have, it's really fascinating.
It is. On a superficial level, Superstar is engineered to be a flawless European club track.
Totally. The lyrics from the official release paint a very standard nightlife picture, like all the boys in the back wearing black, looking like they're up to something.
Right.
And neon nights, smoky eyes, dripping diamonds, flashing lights. It's highly atmospheric.
Yeah, it's designed to translate easily across language barriers in a massive arena. It's got that universal club feel.
But then the chorus shifts the entire tone of the song. It turns into this gritty empowerment anthem.
Yes, it really pivots.
It goes, girl, go and get it like a superstar. Girl, go and do it for the broken hearts because, baby, you're a superstar. And then it says, girl, go ahead and show them all your scars. Girl, go and show exactly who you are.
Such powerful imagery.
And then the bridge drops this incredibly heavy line, baby, I know that. You've been to hell and back. Now, if Senhit is singing that by herself, it feels like, standard pop Brazilians.
Sure.
But hearing Boy George sing those words changes the chemistry of the song entirely.
It fundamentally alters the subtext.
Yeah.
Because when you have Boy George, a man whose life is a very public tapestry of unimaginable global success, deep addiction, profound trauma, and literal criminal incarceration, co-writing a song about showing your scars and going to hell and back, it stops being a generic club anthem.
Right. It hits totally different things.
It becomes an autobiographical confession wrapped in neon lights. He isn't just singing a pop trope, he is referencing a deeply troubled, very real history.
And to really grasp the weight of those lyrics today in Vienna, for you listening, we have to rewind the tape. We need to understand the man who originally defined the word superstar for an entire generation.
We really do.
We have to look at George Allen O'Dowd. He was born in June 1961 in Kent and raised in Eltham in a working-class Irish Catholic family. And when you look at his background, the trauma is baked in from the very beginning. He actually once referred to his family history as a sad Irish song.
And that phrase is tragically accurate, honestly. The generational trauma in his lineage is staggering.
It really is.
His maternal grandmother was found wandering alone outside her home at age 6 and was permanently institutionalized in an industrial school.
Wow.
And his great-uncle, Thomas Bryan, was a member of the Forgotten Ten and was executed at Mountjoy Prison in 1921 during the Irish War of Independence.
So this is a family steeped in loss and systemic violence right from the start.
Exactly.
And that violence didn't stay in the past. It carried directly into his childhood home. His father, Jerry, was notoriously physically and mentally abusive.
Yeah, very openly so.
George's mother, Dinah, later published a memoir detailing how the abuse occurred even while she was pregnant with George.
It's incredibly dark.
And George himself has gone on the record calling his father a terrible husband and a terrible father. It was a home defined by chaos and fear.
It was.
And the tragedy didn't stop there. In 1995, his youngest brother, Gerald, who suffered from severe schizophrenia, was convicted of killing his own wife. during a paranoid episode,
Yeah, it's an environment of almost relentless instability.
which is the crucial psychological context for everything that follows.
Absolutely, because when a child is raised in an environment characterized by that level of unpredictability and pain, one of the most common survival mechanisms is dissociation and reinvention.
Right, you have to escape somehow.
Exactly. If your reality is terrifying, you create a new one. You create an avatar.
Yeah.
George didn't just want to escape Eltham, he needed to escape the very identity of George O'Dowd.
And he did that through sheer aesthetic rebellion. By the time he was 15, he was dismissed from school entirely because he showed up with his hair dyed bright orange.
Yeah, he just fully committed to the aesthetic.
He had no formal qualifications, missed every exam, and basically threw himself into the London underground. He lived in squats, worked odd jobs as a fruit picker and a makeup artist, and found his tribe in the new romantic movement.
Which was a massive cultural shift.
And I want to pause here because we hear the term new romantic a lot when discussing the 80s, but what was it actually reacting to?
So the new romantic movement was essentially the flamboyant, glamorous hangover to the punk rock era.
Okay, that makes sense.
In the late 1970s, punk in the UK was defined by austerity, anger, safety pins, and a kind of aggressive anti-fashion. And that mirrored the severe economic depression of the time.
Right, it was very gritty.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But by the turn of the decade, a group of young people, mostly centered around places like the Blitz nightclub in London, which was run by Steve Strange, they just decided they were tired of being miserable and gray.
They wanted color.
Yes. They embraced highly synthesized music, outrageous theatrical makeup, gender fluidity, and historical costumes. It was pure escapism.
Wow.
It was a deliberate choice to manifest glamour in a world that felt incredibly bleak.
And George was soaking all of this up. He was heavily inspired by the pioneers of glam rock, particularly David Bowie and Mark Bolan of T-Rex.
Oh, absolutely. He actually has portraits of both of them tattooed on his arms today.
That's right. He saw them living this bohemian, otherworldly existence and decided that was the blueprint.
Yeah.
So after a brief and kind of messy stint performing under the name Lieutenant Lush with the band Bow Wow Wow, he realized he needed his own vehicle.
He needed to be the front man.
Exactly. So in 1981, he teams up with bassist Mikey Craig, drummer John Moss, and guitarist Roy Hay. And initially, they called themselves Sex Gang Children.
Which is a name they very, very wisely abandoned.
Definitely. A very good PR move to drop that one. They settle on Culture Club. And what happens next is one of the most meteoric rises in pop music history.
It really was unprecedented.
Their 1982 debut album, Kissing to Be Clever, turns them into global superstars overnight. They become the first group since the Beatles to have 3 top 10 hits in the U.S. from a debut album.
Yeah, do you really want to hurt me? Time, Clock of the Heart, I'll tumble for you.
Classic tracks. And then the follow-up, Color by Numbers in 1983, sells over 10 million copies. Karma Chameleon hits #1 in 16 different countries.
Yeah.
It was the absolute zenith of pop cultural dominance.
But this is where the dynamic becomes truly fascinating, sociologically speaking, because look at the political climate of the early 1980s.
Right.
You have Ronald Reagan in the White House and Margaret Thatcher at 10 Downing Street. This is an era defined by aggressive conservatism, traditional family values, and a very rigid mainstream culture.
Exactly. And this is what I want to dig into. How does a man who is openly androgynous, wearing heavy theatrical makeup, long braids, and women's clothing, completely conquer conservative middle America?
It's like a great question.
I mean, he wasn't some underground niche artist. He was on the cover of Newsweek. He guest starred on an episode of The A-Team.
Yeah, he was everywhere.
How did he Trojan horse this subversive identity into millions of conservative living rooms without triggering a massive cultural panic?
He managed it through 2 highly effective mechanisms: the undeniable warmth of the music and the disarming nature of his personality.
Okay, unpack that a bit.
Well, musically, Culture Club wasn't aggressive or alienating. They were playing blue-eyed soul.
Break that down for us. What exactly does that mean?
Blue-eyed soul is a term used to describe white artists performing rhythm and blues or soul music. Culture Club drew heavily on Motown chord progressions, warm reggae bass lines, and George's incredibly smooth, emotive vocal delivery.
It was very approachable.
Exactly. It sounded nostalgic, rich, and comforting. So while the visual of the band was shocking and avant-garde, the audio was universally accessible. If you heard Karma Chameleon on the radio without seeing the band, it just sounded like a brilliant, timeless pop song.
Okay, that makes sense. And the second mechanism? his personality.
Right. When the media did confront him about his appearance, he never gave them the defensive, combative answers they expected. He used wit as a shield.
Ah, I see.
When legendary, hard-hitting interviewers like Barbara Walters or Joan Rivers would try to corner him about his sexuality or his gender presentation, he would just laugh it off with incredible charm. He presented himself almost like a colorful cartoon character.
Didn't he have that famous quote about tea?
Yes. He famously told the British broadcaster Russell Hardy that he preferred a nice cup of tea to sex.
It's brilliant, really. By acting completely unbothered and almost asexual in his public persona, he completely defanged the conservative outrage machine. He made himself non-threatening.
Exactly. He pushed the visual boundaries to the absolute limit while keeping the music and his public demeanor incredibly palatable.
But behind that colorful, tea-drinking cartoon character, the reality of his life was turning deeply toxic.
Yeah, it was a very different story behind closed doors.
The scars he sings about today in Superstar began forming very rapidly during the mid-1980s. The contrast between his bright pastel public image and his private reality is just jarring.
By 1986, the pressure of global fame, combined with a secret and ultimately soured romantic relationship with Culture Club's drummer John Moss, created a breaking point.
Right.
But the true destructive force that dismantled his life was a severe addiction to heroin.
And the collateral damage of that addiction was immense.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a private struggle. It was pulling people in his orbit down with him.
It was devastating.
In 1986, a keyboardist named MeLoRidAI, who had co-written material for Culture Club's fourth album, was found dead of a heroin overdose inside Boy George's own home in London.
Yeah.
Around the same time, two of George's close friends, Mark Vaultier and Mark Golding, also died of drug overdoses.
It was an environment of profound tragedy, and George himself was caught in a massive police sting called Operation Culture, leading to an arrest for heroin possession. The unraveling was as public as the rise.
He does seek treatment, though, and for a while he manages to carve out a very respectable second act.
He really did try to turn it around.
Yeah, he starts his own record label, More Protein. He scores a massive solo hit in 1992 with his cover of The Crying Game, which actually earns him a Grammy nomination.
Right.
He reinvents himself as a highly sought-after club DJ, writes a best-selling autobiography called Take It Like a Man, and even writes a Tony-nominated Broadway musical called Taboo.
He is clearly a resilient working artist.
He is. But the legal troubles and the substance abuse issues were never fully resolved. They were just dormant. Which brings us to the 2000s, where his trajectory takes a bizarre and then terrifying plunge.
The descent happens in stages, really. In 2005, he was arrested in his Manhattan apartment, and the police were initially called because George himself falsely reported a burglary.
Right, he called them.
Exactly. And when they arrived, they found cocaine. The drug charges were eventually dropped, but he pled guilty to falsely reporting an incident.
The sentence for that was community service, which produced some of the most surreal paparazzi photos of the decade.
Oh, sweeping the streets of New York City for the Department of Sanitation.
It's the visual whiplash that gets me. You have a man who was the absolute pinnacle of 1980s glamour, who lived in unimaginable luxury, forced to wear a bright orange sanitation vest, holding a broom on a public street while tourists take photos of him.
It felt like a brutal, humiliating reality check.
It really did.
But in hindsight, the sanitation uniform was merely a prologue. It was embarrassing, but it wasn't malicious. The true nadir of his life, the event that permanently altered his legacy, was the 2008 criminal conviction.
Yes.
And it's important to walk through the mechanics of this, because this isn't a celebrity getting caught with drugs. This was a violent felony.
Yes. Let's look closely at the facts from the legal and historical sources we have. In April 2007, Boy George interacted with a Norwegian model and male escort named Auden Carlson.
Right.
They had initially met for a photography session, but during their next meeting at George's apartment in London, the situation escalated into violence.
Yeah, it got very dark.
Carlson testified that he was handcuffed to a wall fixture and beaten with a metal chain.
And George admitted in court to the handcuffing, though he maintained a denial regarding the beating with the chain. His defense team brought up the devastating effects of his long-term heavy drug use as a mitigating factor, to explain his paranoid state of mind.
Right, trying to provide context for his action.
Exactly. But the justice system was unswayed by the celebrity context. In December 2008, he was convicted of assault and false imprisonment in Snaresbrook Crown Court.
And he actually served hard time. In early 2009, he was sentenced to 15 months in prison. He was incarcerated at HM Prison, Pentonville, which is a notoriously tough Victorian-era prison in London, and later moved to High Point North.
Yeah.
He ended up serving 4 months before being released early on good behavior, but he was forced to wear an ankle monitor and adhere to a strict curfew.
So when we think about the lyrics of the San Marino Eurovision entry where he sings, "Show them all your scars," we have to ground it in this reality. We aren't talking about the metaphorical scars of a bad album review, or losing relevance, or a difficult breakup. We are talking about literal violence, real victimhood for Auden Carlson, and the undeniable reality of a prison cell.
It's incredibly heavy.
It is, because once a celebrity crosses the line into a violent felony, the public perception fundamentally and permanently shifts. The narrative stops being about a quirky pop star and becomes about a dangerous individual.
Right.
So the question he faced when he walked out of prison was monumental. How do you convince the world and yourself that you have fundamentally changed?
Which leads us to his deliberate public rehabilitation. According to George, he has been entirely sober since March 2nd, 2008, which aligns almost exactly with the period of his trial and impending conviction.
Yeah, that timeline is very telling.
He seems to have realized that the persona he created to escape his childhood had ultimately trapped him.
He did. And he turned to a rigorous spiritual framework. He credits his ongoing survival to his practice of Nichiren Buddhism. Now, for listeners who might be unfamiliar, a core component of this practice is the daily chanting of Namo Misha Rensh.
Right, the chanting.
And this isn't just a casual meditation. It's a highly disciplined, repetitive vocalization meant to awaken one's innate Buddha nature and cut through delusion.
That makes a lot of sense.
For someone whose mind has been ravaged by decades of severe addiction and chaotic impulses, that kind of rhythmic, daily discipline provides an essential anchor.
He also adopted a strict macrobiotic diet, which focuses on simple, unprocessed, plant-based foods, to the point where he even co-wrote the Karma Cookbook.
Right, a total lifestyle overhaul.
It's a complete system override. He replaces the extreme chaos of heroin with the extreme discipline of chanting and macrobiotics. There is a quote from him during this era that I think perfectly captures his duality.
Oh, which one?
He said, "I'm Catholic in my complications and Buddhist in my aspirations."
That is an incredibly self-aware statement. He acknowledges the deep-rooted, guilt-ridden chaos of his upbringing while aspiring toward a state of enlightenment he knows he may never fully reach.
Yeah.
But personal enlightenment doesn't automatically equal public forgiveness. To rehabilitate his image, he had to re-engage with the public. And he did so through the ultimate 21st century redemption machine, reality television.
It is the perfect vehicle for him. Reality TV strips away the untouchable pop star mystique. It allows the public to see the artist as a human being, sitting in a chair, talking, laughing, getting annoyed, and mentoring others.
Absolutely.
He became a coach on The Voice UK, actually taking over Tom Jones's chair. He went on to coach on The Voice Australia for several seasons. He even appeared on the new Celebrity Apprentice in the US, where he finished in 2nd place.
It was a very shrewd, sustained effort. By placing himself in the role of a mentor on singing competitions, he reminded the public of his immense musical legacy and his innate wit, shifting the focus away from his mugshot.
But the reality TV arc peaks, or perhaps bottoms out, depending on how you look at it, in 2022. He goes into the jungle for the 22nd UK series of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here.
Oh, this was a massive pop culture moment.
It really was.
Yeah.
And the producers struck absolute reality TV gold because they put him in the same camp as Matt Hancock.
Yeah, and for context for you listening, Matt Hancock was the UK Health Secretary during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Right.
He was the man on television telling the British public they couldn't see their dying relatives, only to resign in disgrace after leaked security footage showed him breaking his own lockdown rules to carry on an extramarital affair in his office.
Yeah, the hypocrisy was just staggering.
He was, at that moment, one of the most reviled public figures in the UK.
And Boy George did not hide his disgust. The friction was palpable. George stated on camera that his mother, Dinah, had been hospitalized from the pandemic. He explicitly said that if she had died while he was legally forbidden from visiting her, he would have walked off the show the moment Hancock arrived. He openly called the former health secretary slimy and slippery.
George positioned himself as the voice of the outraged public. He finished 8th on the show, but more importantly, he proved he was still a highly outspoken, relevant cultural figure.
He definitely made his presence felt.
He did. However, stepping back into the spotlight as an outspoken cultural figure in the 2020s is a very dangerous game. because the modern digital ecosystem does not allow you to compartmentalize your history. Your past, your opinions, and your politics are constantly collapsing into each other.
And that collision brings us to the geopolitical minefield of modern Eurovision. Eurovision has always claimed to be a non-political event, but we know that's a polite fiction.
Oh, absolutely a fiction.
In 2024, ahead of the contest in Malmö, Sweden, there was a massive, highly polarized global debate regarding Israel's participation amidst the ongoing, devastating conflict in Gaza.
The pressure on the European Broadcasting Union to ban Israel was immense. In response, an open letter was circulated and signed by over 400 artists and public figures, names like Helen Mirren, Gene Simmons, and Boy George.
Right.
The letter explicitly supported Israel's inclusion, urging organizers to allow the Israeli entrant Eden Golan to perform her song Hurricane.
And their argument was that music should remain a unifying force outside of geopolitical boycotts.
Exactly.
Now, we are looking at the intense public reaction to his signature on that letter. And we have the transcript of a viral internet video that directly attacks Boy George for his stance.
Yeah, and I think we need to be really careful here.
Yes, absolutely. I want to make it explicitly clear to you listening. We are not taking a side on the Israel and Gaza conflict, nor are we endorsing or validating this creator's attack. We are simply imparting the content provided in the source material to show how celebrity advocacy triggers this kind of public backlash.
Right, we're just analyzing the mechanics of the internet commentary.
Exactly. So the creator of the video targets a social media post where George allegedly stated that it has become trendy to hate Israel, quoting himself with the phrase, "Fashion for the fragile, style for the brave."
And the video creator just mocks that specific quote. But the mechanics of the attack are what we need to focus on.
Right.
In the digital age, when a legacy artist takes a stance on a highly charged, deeply traumatic geopolitical conflict, the internet doesn't just debate the merit of the political argument.
No, they go for the person.
Exactly. They perform a surgical strike on the artist's moral authority.
The creator bypasses the geopolitical debate entirely and goes straight for the jugular. Let me quote the transcript of the video directly.
Go ahead.
The creator says, "That's a sick quote, George. Tell me, when you handcuffed a man to a wall feature and smacked the bleep out of him with metal chain, did you tell him that?" Yeah. They then directly reference his reality TV stint, saying, "You are lucky, mate. When you went on I'm a Celebrity, you went on the same year that Matt Hancock did, because he took all the flack despite someone like yourself being there."
It's relentless.
And they finish by accusing him of shilling for money, saying, "Hope you enjoy the $7,000."
It is a devastatingly effective rhetorical tactic. The creator is weaponizing the 2008 conviction to completely obliterate Boy George's right to have a public opinion on a modern conflict.
Yeah, they use his past to invalidate his present.
It perfectly illustrates the paradox of celebrity reinvention today. George can spend 16 years sober, chanting, eating macrobiotic food, mentoring singers, and trying to be a positive force.
Right.
But the moment he steps onto a political third rail, the internet immediately excavates his violent felony and drops it right on top of his current advocacy. It is a blunt instrument used to say, "You lost your right to a moral voice the day you went to prison."
It proves that the scars mentioned in his new song are never erased. They are just digitized and archived, waiting to be linked back to him the second he steps out of line.
Yeah.
The internet functions like a permanent digital tripwire,
It really does.
which makes his return to the Eurovision stage this week in Vienna feel incredibly fraught. We are back in the present day. Let's look at the actual reality on the ground for San Marino's 2026 bid.
Because the Eurovision bubble is a harsh environment, rehearsals have been taking place all week at the arena in Vienna, and the press and fandom have been watching very closely.
And the reception to Boy George and Senhit's performance has been tepid, to put it kindly.
Yeah, that's a gentle way of putting it.
We pulled a top-voted YouTube comment from under the official San Marino rehearsal clip, and it simply reads, "Boy George is just kind of there."
That is a staggering observation when you think about it. George O'Dowd spent his entire life dominating every room he walked into.
He was the center of the universe.
Exactly. He commanded the world's attention through sheer visual audacity and charisma. To have him reduced to a background prop, to have a fan say he is just kind of there, speaks to a fundamental disconnect in the staging.
And part of that might be because Senhit's act is incredibly cluttered. During the national final in San Marino, she didn't just have Boy George, she also had the eccentric Estonian rapper Tommy Cash performing on stage with them.
Oh, right.
It feels less like a cohesive artistic vision and more like a chaotic clown car of celebrity cameos all fighting for the camera's attention.
And the betting odds absolutely reflect that lack of cohesion. Let's dive into the statistical reality of semifinal one because the math is incredibly unforgiving here.
I'm looking at the live odds right now from Eurovision World. Remember, there are roughly 15 to 18 countries in a semifinal, and only 10 countries can advance to the grand final.
Right.
The bookmakers currently give San Marino a massive 75% chance of not qualifying. They're sitting squarely at the bottom of the probability table with a mere 20% chance of making it through.
To really put that into perspective, look at the favorites they are competing against on Tuesday night. Finland is fielding Linda Lampanius and Pete Parkkonen with a song called Lickenheiten, and they have a 97% chance to qualify.
97%.
Greece is sitting at 96%. Sweden, a traditional powerhouse, is at 95%. Even countries like Moldova and Croatia are hovering comfortably around 88%. San Marino is statistically drowning.
And if we zoom out to look at the overall odds to win the entire grand final on Saturday, it's even more humbling. Finland is the overwhelming favorite to win the whole thing at 34%.
Yeah.
Greece follows at 14%, and Denmark is at 11%. Even if we look solely at the jury vote odds, which is typically where a well-produced song co-written by a Grammy-nominated legend might pick up some professional points,
Right.
Australia is predicted to win the jury vote at 24%.
Right.
San Marino's mathematical odds to win the Eurovision Song Contest are currently listed as less than 1%.
Which brings us to the ultimate lesson of this entire endeavor. Eurovision, for all its camp and politics, is ultimately a ruthless meritocracy of the present moment.
It really is.
San Marino executed their wildcard strategy. They brought in an absolute titan of 80s pop, a man who has sold tens of millions of records and shifted global culture. They likely spent a massive portion of their broadcaster's budget on this.
Oh, undoubtedly.
But none of that historical weight matters if the 3 minutes on stage don't organically connect with the modern European voting bloc. A 20-year-old voter in Vienna or Stockholm in 2026 is not casting a vote because Boy George was on the cover of Newsweek in 1984.
No, they probably don't even know about that.
Exactly. They are voting purely on visceral impact. If the song doesn't move them, the math will ruthlessly eliminate the legend.
Wow. You know, when you lay it all out like that, I am just marveling at the sheer, unbelievable density of this narrative.
That's a lot to take in.
We started this deep dive looking at a tiny microstate trying to game the system of a song contest. And we ended up charting a life story that feels almost Shakespearean in its tragedy and its scale.
It is a remarkable trajectory. George O'Dowd went from a traumatized kid in a violent home in Kent to a global icon who redefined gender and pop culture.
Yeah. To a struggling addict sweeping the streets of New York City. To a convicted felon sitting in a Victorian prison cell. He clawed his way back to relevance through reality TV, rebuilt his mind through Buddhist chanting.
It's incredible.
And now, at 64 years old, he is standing on a stage in Vienna, fighting against 75% odds to get a country of 33,000 people into a European final.
It is exhausting and fascinating in equal measure. But as we wrap up, it leaves me with this final lingering thought for you, the listener, to mull over long after this deep dive ends.
Oh, what's that?
Well, when we watch a superstar like Boy George perform today, are we actually cheering for the musical talent unfolding in front of us? Or has the music become secondary? Are we just applauding the sheer stubborn fact that this human being survived the spectacular wreckage of their own life?
That's a great question. And furthermore, does true reinvention even exist anymore? In an era where your worst mistakes are permanently etched in digital stone, just waiting for a single controversial opinion to drag them back into light, perhaps the concept of a clean slate is dead. Going back to where we started, we love symmetry. We love the idea of architectural perfection in our pop stars.
We really do.
But maybe the reality is that the architecture is always cracked. The foundation is always muddy, built on trauma and terrible decisions. And the best we can hope for is that the artist eventually figures out how to make those scars sound like a decent song. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.